Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel again. This is going to be like my third video today, which I don't normally ever do. I usually like to space my videos out, but I was just a little too excited. I really want to talk to you guys about this deck, and I just couldn't wait. So when I was at the Northwest Tarot Symposium, this was the only deck that I purchased for myself. Peggy bought me one, I bought this one, and there were a couple others I acquired through trades. This one has me pretty dang excited. I've already done a little looking through it. I've worked with it once, and I just want to take you on a tour of it and give you some of my first impressions, share with you some things that have stood out, and yeah, just get this out into the world, because it's one of those things when mass market decks come out, a lot of times we only get a couple preview images of the deck and we don't really know for sure what the end result is going to really look like. But man, so this is a Schiffer Red Feather Publishing deck. I did get it from Schiffer's table at Northwest Tarot Symposium. It's a really nice sturdy box. We are familiar with these kinds of boxes in the sense that we get something, we have a similar format for the Everyday Enchantments Tarot by Poppy Palin and the Marielle Tarot by Marie White, and I was just really excited to get my hands on this. And they had a demo deck out, and as soon as I started flipping through the cards and really looked at the book, I was sold. It was an instant go-to. So before I dive into this, this is essentially a shadow work deck, and it is joining a couple of real hard hitters for me when it comes to shadow work. So my go-to for shadow work deck has typically been the Bohemian Gothic. Scratch that, guys. The Deviant Moon. It's been a long day and I've done a lot of filming today. But the Deviant Moon Tarot. And I adore this deck for shadow work. I think it's really fantastic. The imagery is extremely sort of creepy and confronting. And yet it is something that it completely blows me away with the depth of the shadow work readings every time. And it's really the artwork, I think, that just shows you the shadow meaning of so many different archetypes that we're familiar with the tarot. The other shadow work deck that I reach for in my personal practice is the Dark Goddess Tarot by Ellen Lorenzi Prince. This is what the box looks like. Now this deck is currently, the indie version is currently out of print, but Schiffer Red Feather is going to be reprinting this, I believe, later this year. I may not be correct on timeline, but this is another hard hitter when it comes to shadow work, and I work with this deck every month on the Dark Moon. But I really enjoy working with these archetypes and these goddesses every single month. I've gotten a lot of really wonderful insights from working with this deck. So it's no small order to produce a shadow work deck that I can get really excited about. But this one for sure just like sort of knocks it out of the park. So let's dive in. Again, it's still new to my collection, so a lot of this is still going to be really a first impression. I've only done a reading with it once, and mostly this is like that initial walkthrough. But let's talk about, sorry, I know we're pretty close, but check out the yellow inlay on this box. And when I show you this book, like, it is hefty. It is, let's see how many pages we have in here. I think we have, let's see, does it have page numbers? Oh yeah, it does. Oh, it's only 207 pages, but it feels super substantial. And this is one of those decks, this is one of those books that has full color pages, and it has that magazine kind of quality paper, and it smells so good. I was just talking about this. Oh, I love the smell of books like this, like seriously. So when you open the box, you have the book sitting on top, and my cards have moved around a little bit because they have been unwrapped, but they come inside this inset tray with thumb holes. It's a nice tray. It's not the kind that the cards can like slide behind or underneath. It's very sturdy. And then they've got a plastic sleeve around them. So that's what the inside of the box looks like. I'm just going to set that aside. There we go. I can rotate my candle. It just can't like take my candle away completely. So I'm just going to set it all the way. We'll still see a bit of the box there. It is a gilded deck, and I have to admit the backs are not necessarily my favorite, but I have a feeling they're going to grow on me. They're this yellow reversible design with a black border, and that is what they look like. And these are matte, so they are smooth matte. They don't feel like they have like a silk lamination on them, but they are very smooth and not glossy at all. The cardstock feels decent. It's actually a little bit stiff feeling at first, and that may be the gilding. It is that sort of shiny mirrored gilding, so it can be a little hard on the hands at first to shuffle. but I thought it was a nice touch. So I am going to want to dive into all of the artwork. Oh, let's do the cards first. Okay, I really want to talk about the book, but we're going to do the cards first because I know that's what we really, really want to see because there just isn't enough about the cards yet on the internet. So let's zoom in. We're going to take a look at the artwork. There are some title changes to the cards, but this should give you a really good idea of what to expect. And I want to make sure we're really in focus. Looks good. So first we have our Seeker, and I think this is really interesting because we have this sort of headless character. His head is actually down here on the ground, and he's holding what looks to be like a cat out in front of him, and it's almost as if he's saying, I don't need to use my brain, I'm going to go purely on intuition, which is a really interesting depiction of the Fool. They call him the Seeker here. Our Magician has definitely got all of his tools up in the air. He's got 3 legs, which to me kind of feels like a funny nod to the 3 legs that sometimes looks like the table has 3 legs in a Marseille style deck. So I thought that was kind of a fun little touch. He definitely, I like this like little coil that's going on his helmet. He's got more of a mad scientist-y kind of vibe, which is really interesting. Here's our High Priestess, and she sort of has like that kind of classic witchy feel with the bat hanging here, her broom in hand, and she's holding her book of secrets or her book of shadows, and she's standing on a crescent moon. So all of our necessary symbols are definitely here. It's just a matter of the way that the artist has chosen to depict them. I love me a tree-based Empress. I just really enjoy that energy. But it's interesting that in addition to the fruit that's hanging in her tree, there's also a bat, there's also a little skull here. We still have nods to the shadow, even in a card that's supposed to be fairly comforting. We still have some sort of creepiness. We have like a little dragon sort of monster friend over here, and some bunnies. Here is our Emperor. This has got such a quirky, fun, comic-y feel, and I feel like it takes some of the intensity out of doing shadow work. I think it's got almost like a, what's the word? What's that storybook? Where the Wild Things Are. That's kind of what it makes me think of almost. This idea of going into an underworld and exploring. It's got a very cohesive feel to the artwork that really feels like you're going into a specific world where this is what creatures are like. But we still have our Emperor, still has his sort of staff, his power here in hand. Our Hierophant has a really creepy, cool vibe to him. Definitely looks sort of ancient and a little bossy, which, you know, my Hierophants kind of need to be a little bossy. Here's our Lovers, which is interesting because it kind of looks to me like we have a figure very similar, if not the same, as the Hierophant, only instead of the antlers, it has trees growing out of its head. And it sort of looks like it's offering love to this sweeter, more vulnerable looking figure, which is really interesting. I would be curious to see what the guidebook had to say about this one. But you almost get this vibe of somebody with power and somebody with less power. So there's an imbalance here, which we don't normally see depicted in the Lovers. But again, if we're looking at the shadow side of this card, that imbalance could be really interesting to explore. We have our Chariot. I love these little wild, furry, spidery beasties that he's trying to control. 1 foot on either one, so that could go very badly if he's not very focused. Strength. And we have here sort of a 2-headed creature. On one side we have this almost ogre-like creature with the barbell. And on the other side we have this sort of little girl-looking creature with a doll or a cat in arms. You definitely get a dichotomy here of like self and shadow self potentially kind of duking it out, which is really interesting. You could also look at this card as sort of the inner child and the inner critic duking it out, which is a really cool take. Here's our Hermit. Really interesting, perhaps over isolated in this card, which again, it's shadow work, right? Our Wheel of Fortune. We've got somebody kind of climbing up this way, coming down this way, barely hanging on down here and sitting pretty at the top. But there's a bunch of symbols, and it looks like there are astrological symbols here. And then there's numbers, almost like a roulette wheel. And the outside also has symbols, but there's some alchemical symbols, some planetary symbols. It would be interesting to see what the guidebook has to say about this one in more detail. Here we have Justice. I feel like I keep knocking the camera, so I'm going to try not to do that. Here we have Justice, and we have what looks like a bird here, a nest with just eggs here, and an owl. And this tree almost looks nervous, like weighing the options, like which is the owl going to go after one of these? I'm not quite sure what the story is there. Our hanged man as the bat. Death is super interesting because you get this sort of egg, and death is hatching the egg in this new person. So there's definitely a focus here on sort of heralding in the new. When I was at Newt's, T. Susan Chang had a really, really good quote, and I don't have it handy, but it was essentially that death is necessary to begin the new. Like death is a necessary step to birth, or death births the new. And this is literally a depiction of that. Here we have Temperance. And we get the feeling this is very shadowy here. We don't get the idea of the angel. We kind of have almost a demon-y energy here. This idea of being out of balance and chaotic energy. The devil, looking very devilish. We have a building like on fire in the background. We see money on fire. We sort of see the aftermath of greed. The tower. Towers asunder. This person sort of, it's interesting, instead of falling out, they've got their umbrella out, like they think that's going to help their fall. So you can see the denial in this image. The star. Star is kind of held on with a little string, almost like a balloon. The moon. And here she's walking with the crayfish through the path. And we have the wild and the moon up here. It's interesting how she's walking hand in hand with the crayfish being the representation of what we bring up from the subconscious, what we bring up from the shadow. Here we have the sun, and we have all these sort of creepy, happy sunflowers. We have a kind of, the sun face itself doesn't even look particularly happy. We have this crazy beast. Again, there's a string he's holding on to, kind of binding himself to the sun. And there's an interesting kind of shadow aspect to that idea of being sort of over-attached. Like we see the star almost over-attached to positivity, I could see in the shadow aspect of that card, which is interesting. Discretion instead of judgment. And we have this higher perspective, or this big picture thinking is kind of what I think. Maybe being more cautious. And here we have the world, and we still have 4 beasties for each of the 4 elements represented. We have, instead of an Ouroboros, we have the snake sort of all bound up over here on this side. We still have the wreath, so we still have like a boundary, or a, yeah, sort of a boundary here. This is really interesting. I really want to like read this book cover to cover to really learn more about the depictions we see. Here we have our Ace of Pentacles, and somebody's definitely holding on to a big opportunity. There's a little bauble on this end of this. I'm trying to figure out if this is an object I'm supposed to be able to recognize here. And we have a little creature down here. There's this big hand reaching up out of the earth, taking hold of this. And then there's this like little creature just kind of looking on. A very stressed out looking 2 of Pentacles. Doesn't look so effortless here. And he's already dropped 1 of the Pentacles and is standing on it. So only 1 is really being taken care of properly. We have this sort of pyramid in the background that's falling apart. Here's our 3 of Pentacles, and it's almost like, look, I did it myself. And you get that here, this person's just watching, perhaps, not helping. I'm really liking that the artwork definitely is seeming to intentionally depict the shadow. This person's definitely clutching all of his coins close. Yeah, here we have this sort of, it's almost like an ape here who's looking on to this campsite and feeling left out. But it's interesting here because you could get this idea that if this were a bear or another wild animal watching this gathering, there's a decision to make of not only to join and be a part of the gathering, but perhaps to overcorrect and maybe do some damage. The 6 of Pentacles. We have the ghosts here. All this exchange of gifts back and forth. This actually looks pretty positive and happy to me. The 7 of Pentacles. So the 7 being this idea that you've planted something and you're just kind of waiting to see how it's all going to turn out. And it doesn't look like it's turning out quite so awesome. I get kind of a Seymour vibe here with these plants all kind of tearing apart this little bit of meat that he's brought to share among them. and definitely a feeling of having gotten in over your head, like maybe not thought through the consequences with what you've planted. The Eight of Pentacles looks pretty traditional to me. He's refining his sugar skull works here and just kind of doing that repetitive work, mastering his craft. The 9 is interesting. So now you are the bird and you've caged yourself, which is definitely a shadow side to that card. And here we have the 10 of Pentacles, where in an effort it looks like to grow, it's getting smaller and smaller. So there's an absence of enough to really take care of one's legacy. So this is definitely, again, things need to be re-looked at in order to get closer to that place where you can really have that legacy to pass on. But it seems like it's getting weaker and smaller as it grows. The Page of Pentacles. Cute. He's got like a little friend. He's got his little thing. It looks like he's ready to go trick-or-treating, but his books are to the side. It's like he's not being studious. He's not learning. He's distracting himself, perhaps. Our Knight of Pentacles, moving slowly but on a snail. So this idea of perhaps being a little too sluggish, a little too slow. The Queen of Pentacles. Interesting. So she's got a cauldron. She's sort of got this skull and crossbones in here. There's a coin in there. She's definitely taking care of her belongings. And there's this little creature here that looks like it's trying to make the food or the soup. You could definitely look at this as she's not necessarily nurturing something here that's going to nurture others, but she's more focused on making sure herself is taken care of. And our King of Pentacles, a little too much mind on his money, perhaps. A little too much. Now we're into the swords. So we have the feather. I think the feather or the quill is a really good representation of the ace here. Our Two of Swords, very Rider-Waite-Smith, just in that creepy world. The 3. This is interesting because the stabbing through the heart has happened, but he looks oblivious. Like he's not really addressing the hurt or the pain or the wound. There's sort of a denial happening there. The Four of Swords here, again, we get this idea. We're looking at shadow, right? And I feel like here we've got him resting, and rest is great, but he's rested so long, he's gone now. He's just bones. The Five of Swords. This crow has got all the corn, and these birds have nothing. The Six of Swords. Oh yeah, we're going to safety on a dragon's back. So it's, again, this is sort of an elephant in the room, I feel like, kind of card, where you are moving away from the conflict, or you feel like you are, but you're bringing some conflict with you. Seven of Swords. He's taking off with the swords, but he's done damage on the way out. Eight of Swords, all trapped up, and this doesn't look so easy to get out of. That's something I normally look for in the Eight of Swords, is like an easy exit. Sometimes the artist has worked in some kind of easy exit to the image so that you can see how you can easily let yourself out. The Nine of Swords. I do not like this image. This is very creepy, spidery, kind of coming down. Not a fan, but it really encompasses that idea of fear for me pretty well. And here we have the Ten of Swords, all pin-cushioned up. Our Page of Swords. This is very horror movie creepy to me. This reminds me of the girl from the Ring. The scary movie, The Ring. Our Knight of Swords. He's flying on his bat. Oh, we have a grown-up version of the Ring girl. Ooh, creepy. Really interested. I haven't pulled any of these cards on my own. I only did the one reading with it. Those didn't come up, so I'm interested what the guidebook has to say. Our King of Swords does look like he could be pretty strategic and logical. So he's got that look about him. Our Ace of Wands. So definitely this idea of a new passion, new inspiration, but sometimes that can get a little carried away. Our Two of Wands. I see this as sort of scrying versus like looking out over it onto like a big field. This card feels more like scrying to see what possibilities there are. Very much for me, this is the Embark card, only it's interesting with the octopus sort of holding all these lights up for the ship in the distance. Like, okay, come on, come closer. But I almost feel like it's come closer so I can like get you. Like if this is a Kraken creature. The Four of Wands, we have built our structure and we're celebrating, but the cobwebs, I don't know, in this case we've got spiders who have built obviously a nice little home in the cobwebs, so it still works Rider-Waite-Smith. more upright. I don't know that I see the shadow. I guess you could see the cobwebs as perhaps we left the structure here too long without building on it, and it's starting to attract other critters. We have our 5 of Wands and our competition. Pretty Rider-Waite-Smith there as well. Our successful 6, triumphant. I don't know what this little guy is here. It almost looks like a piece of candy or something on the ground. Yeah, there's okay. Yeah, it is. It's almost like they're celebrating. So there's balloons. There's a piece of candy. Definitely celebrating the success. The 7 of Wands. Ooh, interesting. So she's got a lot coming at her, so she's gonna get him with the volcano. Well, maybe that's not a volcano. Maybe that's, oh yeah, no, that's not a volcano. It's almost looked like a volcano in the back, but it's actually almost like this overpowering energy of, again, holding her ground, like, come at me, bro, I gotcha. And she's gonna take him down. And here we have the 8 of Wands, and all of this energy is coming at them and trying to sort of manage it as it comes in without getting overwhelmed. Here we have the 9 of Wands, letting all the candles burn, kind of holding ground, still bandaged. Interesting that the cover of his book just says no. Or maybe I'm just seeing that, but it looks like it just says the word no on it right there. The 10 of Wands, the burden, the responsibility, having so much to carry, and yet the fruit is just the piece at the top. And it kind of gives me this idea that really all he needed to do, it's almost like he's carrying this whole load so that he can bring this single apple back, when all he needed to do was pick up this top stick, or even just this top little branch so that he could have the apple. So he's overworking himself. That's a really cool depiction, actually. Then we have our Page of Wands, looking at the wonder, but definitely very rooted. This is interesting because he's not making forward momentum. He's kind of focusing on the idea, but not actually making progress on making it happen. So maybe a little procrastination happening in this card. Our Knight of Wands, hair on fire, rose in his teeth. Interesting. He kind of reminds me of somebody you want to, like, this is like a red flag relationship in one card. The Queen of Wands. We've got the sunflower and the cat still. This whole hair in front of the face thing, so creepy. And our King of Wands. Cups is my favorite suit typically in the tarot. I'm such a water baby. So let's see. The ace here is kind of fun. We've got this fish in the top is literally partying. He has a party hat on and a little sound maker, and he's having a party in his emotional opportunity here, in his overflowing cup. This is so cute, the 2 of Cups, and the way they're sort of kissing from a distance. But this does speak to sometimes we can make connections, and it's very surface, right? We're not getting closer. We're not actually getting into the depth. 3 of Cups. This is very Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm not immediately seeing the shadow here. 4 of Cups. So it's like a cat. There's like 1 cup sort of spilled, 3 cups upright, and then it's thinking about the fact that it's like thinking about the fact and thinking about the fact and thinking about that. This literally looks like the perfect overthinking card to me. Like this paralyzed, like not willing to try new things because what if something else happens, or what if something goes wrong? It's really interesting. The 5 of Cups. They're like, almost like he's like some kind of sea monster, and there's these like spilled paint cans, and he's had to get out of the water maybe? I'm not sure on this one. I'd have to look at the book, but that's really interesting. The 6 of Cups, and it's a tea party. That totally works for me. 7 of Cups, this is our decision-making card, and we still have a similar kind of mix of things. A couple things that look okay, a couple things that look really bad, a couple things that look neutral. The 8 of Cups, embalming fluid, preserving stuff, all this kind of stuff. So this is somebody who's basically been doing everything they could to preserve their old life, their old self, and they're walking away from all of those preserving, keeping things as they are, and is literally dropping their mummy's rags and letting themselves decompose. And to me this makes perfect sense, because a lot of times 8 of Cups moments come when we've been trying so hard to hold on to the known, and we fear moving on to the unknown, right? This is so perfect to me. It makes so much sense. The 9 of Cups being our wish card. Everything is abundant and overflowing. This still looks really happy, which I like. And our 10 of Cups is actually a pile of rainbow paint cans, but then it looks like it's almost at a beach. And there's this little crab like, this paint's not good for my beach. So this is interesting because it could be everything looks really great on the surface. It's all bright and colorful and hooray, but what else is happening that we're not paying attention to? The Page of Cups being our sort of dreamer, and our intuitive is looking into the cup that's looking in, that's got a fish, and the fish has got its own cup that's got a worm. That's super adorable. I love that. Our Knight of Cups being this mermaid with her heart and her starfish, just like the dreamer. Looks like she's come onto land and she's gonna go chase after something. Our Queen of Cups seems very comfortable with herself. She's singing, she's really relaxed posture. She's got her hot steaming mug of something, her musical instrument. And our King of Cups almost has this sort of wanderer, happy, content with very little. He carries everything he needs with him. Kind of low maintenance kind of dude. So that is all of the cards and sort of my thoughts and impressions on them. I'd like to take a quick look at the book. There's so much here, and I've only just begun to dive in. It's really, really beautifully produced. Liz Dean did the foreword, which I really appreciate. I can't wait to read that. And there's a preface and introduction. We're talking about, oh, these are from the creators. This is from the creator of the House of Shadows, Lenormand. Looks like it might be. So let's take a look. So for each card, and this is what really caught my attention, for every card you have the artwork, you have a statement. This is in the majors. I don't think we have that statement. No, we don't for the minors. So in the Seeker, for example, who's the Fool, I'm just beginning a journey of discovery and not sure which way to go or what I might find, but I'm going to take a chance. So it describes the artwork in the card and explains what it's depicting. Then there's keywords and shadows, a message that's quite detailed. And this is so cool. There are reflections, and the reflections very much seem to be indicating you to do that shadow work. So for the Fool, for example, what am I seeking at this stage of my life? Am I feeling reckless? Do I feel stuck on my current path, unable to start again? Or do I change paths whenever things get difficult? Why am I resisting beginning a journey? What type of journey is appropriate at this time? What steps do I need before I start this journey? So whereas a more light focused deck might be asking you where you need to take a leap of faith, this deck is asking you to question your motives, question your behavior, and it does that throughout the entire deck. So the minors get almost as much attention. I'll just give you an idea of what that looks like. Right? You still have your card, your keywords, your shadowed keywords, your message, and reflections. And these reflections would obviously be really, really wonderful journal prompts. Once you get past the card descriptions, let's get there. There's a few extra goodies in the back. There's a how to use, how to bond, cleansing, charging, consecrating, timing, and significators here. There's some interesting things here about working with the moon. How to ask questions, as well as some symbolism for each of the minor arcana and the major arcana. There's a really great little quick guide to the major arcana's interpretation and some numerological information as well to sort of tie you in, especially if you come from Marseille or from working with more pip decks. This is going to help you make that sort of bridge that knowledge. Some information on your court cards and on reversals. Spiritual hygiene, how to shuffle, and there are a couple of layouts. So there is a couple of 3-card spreads, 4-card spread, 5-card spread, 6-card, 7-card, 9-card, another 4-card moon spread. I mean, they're pretty generous with the spreads back here. A 13 moon spread, and a tarot FAQ, which I think is super awesome because it talks about, can you change your destiny if you get a bad reading? Does shuffling matter? Are they like a Ouija board? This is great. This is great to have this FAQ in the back. And there is a conclusion. So the author-artist Monica Bodersky did create the Lucky Lenormand Oracle, the House of Shadows Lenormand Oracle, and the Awakening Artist's Residency. as well as some more information here. There's a bibliography. This book is looking pretty dang good. I'm so excited to work with this deck. I cannot wait. So keep your eyes out for it in an upcoming weekly deck review when I start diving into non-Marseille decks again. I cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Are you gonna pick this one up? Let me know. Remember, as always, you can book a reading with me over at supportivetarot.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!